Welcome to Subscription Prescription, the podcast where you get the information you need to scale your subscription program.
Hello and welcome to another week's dose. I'm your host, Matthew Holman, and this week we're going to be talking about churn. Specifically, what you can do in those first few months to figure out how to get somebody to stick to the subscription. But before we begin, I'd like to mention our sponsor for this week's dose, Jordan Salvit and Salvit Advisors. If you're not aware of Jordan and his team, they've helped build some amazing subscription programs like Midday Squares, Hunt a Killer, and Pipsticks. And their team is working on a new tool that's going to allow you to plug into your subscription program and start getting insights right away. It's going to be coming out later this summer. Going to have a big announcement around it, and I'm going to have some exclusive offers for everybody that's on my newsletter and my podcast for my community. But if you're interested in getting added to that wait list, you can email subdoc@salvit.com. I'll have a link to that in the show notes. But again, want to give a big shout out to Jordan for everything that he's done for me, this podcast, and for the subscription community. Okay, now we're going to dive into churn. One of the things that I think is so fascinating about churn, and one of the big hypes around subscription right now, is this idea of surprise and delight. It's this idea of you're going to use a discount or a gift in order to get somebody from like month 1 to month 2, month 2 to month 3, 3 to month 4, trying to get them over that hump. And while there are plenty of times where that tool, that methodology is appropriate, in my work and what I've seen be really successful, and this is also coming from Jordan and how he works with subscription brands that have scaled, is actually using that as a tool later down the road. We don't actually want to lead with surprise and delight, because if you think about it, it has some limitations. And this is kind of what I mean. Imagine, again, let's think of like a really just simple example. Is using a supplement. So we'll talk protein powder, use that all the time as an example. But let's say somebody is buying your protein powder, okay? If they're not using it, or if they don't, say they saw an ad or a friend told them to buy it, but maybe they're not fully convinced. Maybe they're thinking of starting a new workout routine. We've all been there. We buy a product that we think we need. We don't quite need it, or we don't start using it, or maybe for some reason it's like not quite, maybe it makes you feel bloated, or there's some other mismatch or misalignment for a customer. So when we're talking about a subscription product where somebody is not quite the right fit, giving them a discount to stay really isn't all that effective, right? Now, and then the added problem with using surprise and delight as like a tool is that you're offering that to essentially everyone on a subscription at that point, right? And so sometimes the problem there is, again, say you have 1,000 subscribers that come in this month, right? And you're worried about, normally in that first month's renewal, you lose 20% of them. So you're worried about losing the 200 subscribers out of this 1,000. Well, if I'm going to give a gift, or say I'm going to give an additional 10% off, I have to offer it to the 1,000, right? I can't just target, well, we'll get into that. But it's difficult to just target the people that might be at risk as opposed to offering it to everybody. And so when I offer it to everybody, then I see like a 5% incremental lift. So maybe I only lose 15% of subscribers that month instead of 20. Okay. I'm doing quick math in my head. That's 50 subscribers that you save now. Are those 50 subscribers, is there enough margin in those 50 subscribers, not just in that month, but in their lifetime value, to offset the cost of offering that discount to the other 950 subscribers in that cohort, right? So that's part of the risk. So before we go a little bit further, I will go, anybody who's listening to this know, sometimes we go down some rabbit holes, but that's part of this fun. So getting into creating alignment, before we get farther down that road of talking about alignment, there are a few different ways where you can offer that discount just to people, and that's using cancellation flows. So when we're talking about like when somebody's going to cancel their, it's month 1, month 3, month 6, whatever that is, they decide, hey, I no longer want this. They go to log in, or they're emailing your customer support. There's a methodology there where, depending on the reason, you can make offers to people, right? we're gonna talk about that a little bit more as well at the end of this episode, because I do want to unpack some of the ways that you should be building those cancellation flows and thinking about those cancellation flows. But let's get back to alignment. So some of the biggest opportunities in months 1, 2, and 3 on a subscription are figuring out ways to get somebody to like really, really use or like or engage with that subscription. So in a very recent episode, I think 2 weeks ago, we talked about frequency, getting people on the right frequency. So for example, if they buy that bag of protein, but they only use, say, a half a scoop as compared to a full scoop for what they should use, they're going to go through that bag a lot slower. So one of the first things you can do is try to make sure you're engaging through email and some education and how you're onboarding people. And within that portal of letting people know that you can manage your subscription by changing the frequency so that it works for you. So that's one of the first things that you can do. The other is getting really good at understanding, collecting feedback on people. And this is something I harp about all the time, is you need to be collecting post-purchase survey data. You obviously need to be collecting cancellation data, and you can be talking to your customers a lot more based on what they're needing, what they're seeing, why they're getting engaged, right? So for example, a really common, simple thing might be, hey, if somebody's using your protein powder and you're finding like, hey, this is actually makes me feel really bloated. I don't really like it. I'm not going to use it anymore. Okay. Now, depending on how many people are telling us that there's a little bit, there's a problem with the product, we can get deeper into seeing whether we can resolve that product issue so that we don't have that problem anymore, like that it's a little bit of a misalignment. But the other part of that is like understanding expectations around what a lot of people want or think or need, right? So Salvit advisors, one of the things they work with is like hunt a killer, right? And so this is like a monthly subscription you're getting. It's something you can play with your spouse or your friends, and you're essentially solving like this murder mystery, right? You're like the detectives in this. So if you think through, like if you're getting that first month, again, maybe that's a gift subscription somebody got for you, or maybe you've bought it. You're really excited about that. Maybe I use this as an example because I've done this in my own life. We often have aspirations, right? Like, hey, I think that my wife and I would really love spending a little more quality time together. My wife loves these murder mystery podcasts. My wife actually doesn't, but this is the example I'm using. So I think I could subscribe to this Hunt a Killer thing. Every month we'll have a dedicated time of like, of spending time together and having some fun. So that's what I think when I buy it. We get it. It's like 2 hours to play it. But turns out, you know what? We're still in the house. And from a date perspective, actually, I need something that's about getting out of the house. So maybe that's not a good fit. So I'm going to cancel that, right? So that happens all the time with our subscriptions where people think they're going to use it. They think that it's going to work. There's something about it that speaks to them, but it doesn't quite fully align with what they need or what they want. And that is fine, because I think in many ways, it's okay to lose those types of subscribers because they don't get the full value or benefit of the subscription. So I do think it's important to like start getting a little more comfortable with sometimes it's just not the right fit for some people, and that's okay. The trick is can we figure out how to make some things a little bit more exciting? Like instead of maybe if we find getting feedback that couples are actually feeling like they should get out of the house, then maybe we could start marketing those just a little bit differently, or include inserts of like, hey, take this to your friend's house, like host a party. This is the kind of thing to play with more people, right? And so there's things you can do on your side where you start to use some of this feedback of what people like so you can create a better alignment. And again, you can use email marketing, you can use part of your unboxing, you can use some retargeting ads, you can use how you've created like creative and landing pages to speak better to these use cases. There are a lot of ways to address this, but it's the mindset of starting to think through, okay, we can change this up just a little bit so that people feel like, hey, I'm going to start using this with my friends. This does get me out of the house. It gets me socializing with other people. That's really exciting, right? So the same thing when we're talking about like protein powder, right? If people are buying your protein powder and you're starting to find that they're using it for weight loss, but your prime use case is for like endurance athletes, right? You have to ask yourself the question, will this work for meal replacement? Can I position this a little bit differently based off of like post-purchase survey of people telling me the reasons why they bought this? And if I can, that's great. I can position the product just a little bit differently. Maybe I can spin up its own specific landing page for these types of use cases. Maybe its own type of like onboarding email sequence and an insert that's specific for that use case. based off of what they pick on like a post-purchase survey or like a pop-up as part of the checkout experience. You can build those out if that segment is large enough to justify the time and effort that it takes to do this. But if not, then we need to make sure that we're dialing in on the people that do see value, right? So again, there's going to be a lot of people that come through your subscription are just interested, are curious. And so they're going to buy that. It's a discount because of the subscription. We want to try to figure out what they're seeing that's interesting. Can we sell to that better? But if not, that's okay. There's always going to be people that are doing that. Let's hone in more on the prime use case. So if we're talking this protein powder example, if our prime use case is endurance athletes, that's who stick around on the subscription the longest. That's who work the hardest, who love it the most, that buy it the most frequently, that buy other products from us. Then we want to lean into that subscription experience more. We want to do a little bit better job on the messaging on the front end, on our copy and our offers to reflect that, so we get more people like that in the funnel. And that we can make it a little bit easier so that some of these people that are a little more curious and that are buying maybe for not a prime use case, maybe they're a little bit more discouraged, or they just get a better idea of like what's going on. Okay. The other piece of this is also using other products in your catalog, right? So if you're using, let's say Hunt a Killer, for example, Hunt a Killer, getting it in the mail, you're at your home, they started getting feedback that a lot of people want to get out of the house. So they build like city-based scavenger hunts, right? So if you're in San Francisco, there's a San Francisco one, there's a Dallas one, there's a New York one. And depending on where you are, you have to get out of the house and go see these clues, and it's very interactive or something like that, right? That's just an idea of a product. Literally thought of it right just at the second. But the idea, what I'm getting at, is you can start to develop product for some of the people that are coming in, so that like, hey, here's our prime product. When somebody goes to cancel and the cancellation reason is we decided we want to get out of the house more. Oh, okay. Well, we actually have a product for that works really, really well for that, right? Same thing with the protein powders. Like, hey, looks like for some people, there's a certain ingredient in here that causes some discomfort. So we're going to create an alternative version that's vegan, or that has another different ingredient in it that's a little bit different. So that if that doesn't quite work for you, when you go to cancel for that reason, we can make an offer like, hey, we actually have a product that's designed to this. And this is the other piece of like trying to create the right alignment around expectations, is how you're leveraging your cancellation reasons, right? I was just at ChargeX yesterday. Recharge is rolling out some new features related to this around being able to segment and target cancellation reasons a little bit differently, which is great that they're becoming more advanced there. There are a few other tools that allow you to do this, depending on the platform that you're on. But the idea is you want to try to create, when you start to understand more around why people are canceling, you can create offers that are really specific or are targeted towards them and what they need. And that brings us to cancellation flows. And one of the interesting things about cancellation flows is that most people kind of set up a bunch of reasons. You put 7, 8, 9, 10 reasons in there, and you just kind of set that up. And depending on what people pick, maybe most of the time it's you give them a skip option, you give them, say, like 20% off to stick around, and that's it. And one of the first things I do when I go into a consult and I'm looking to optimize a program is I look at those reasons, and I do a couple things that I want you to do as well. When you're looking at your cancellation flows, if you have like 8 or 9 reasons, it'd be really nice to get that down to like 4 or 5, and you do that by looking at all of those reasons. And if I have like 3, 4, or 5 of those reasons that are like less than 5% of all respondents are picking that, I'm getting rid of them. Like that's great to know, but I want to start either making it simpler for people to pick what option is there, kind of like a paralysis issue related to cancellation flows, or I want to rotate in other examples. Okay. The other thing is also being able to add in a little bit of like information gathering. So using an other box, using like ChatGPT or another AI tool, you can grab all those responses and throw it into it and use a prompt related to sentiment to try to like assess very quickly what people are marking down as other. Okay. Now, the other thing here is looking at how when we're listing those cancellation reasons, again, depending on your platform, if it gives you the option to get a little bit more of like information on too much product, because too much product and too expensive are usually the top 2 reasons across every subscription I look at. We want to spend some time getting a little bit more involved in like, what does that mean? Is too much product mean I never used it? Does too much product mean I'm getting the wrong amount? I need less? Is too much product like this just doesn't work? Or too much product like I have too much product because I hate it? Right. So we want to start testing a little bit more on those examples. So see if we can get a little bit more information. If we could add that other field or add as somebody picks too much product, being able to add a little bit more capture related to that. Because that's what's going to allow you to like make new product changes or make existing product changes, roll out new products, change the experience, align what's happening for the customers with your subscribers, what's happening on the subscription. Now, the other thing is also thinking through what types of offers to make to people, right? So it's not always what you think. And this is, again, something that to like list out on some options to be testing on these cancellation flows. Discounts aren't always the right solution, right? If somebody has too much product, it might actually make sense. Like maybe they're tired of a flavor. You could offer a product switch in that instance. Usually too much product is they're just kind of done or they're not using it as frequently as they are, but that's an option to try that, right? If say, for example, your reason is, I don't like this flavor anymore. Okay, that could be an option to switch out flavors. So being able to trigger product swaps is a great place to start. Looking at skips, just picking a preset frequency of like, hey, I need to skip 6 weeks or I need to skip 2 months. But also with when it comes to discounts, depending on the reason and depending on the timeline, right? Again, not every platform lets you trigger reasons based off of product or number of subscriptions. But I really like it when you're able to do that, because if somebody's been around for a month and they cancel because of it's too expensive, giving them a discount is maybe not the best idea, because you're probably giving away too much margin and they're just still going to cancel again the next month. But if somebody's been around past 5-6 months and they're canceling for too expensive, giving them a pretty steep discount to get them to stay can be really, really impactful, right? It might just be, hey, this month they're feeling the credit crunch a little bit. You give them that product on a discount. They've already established that they really like it and that they're using it. They appreciate that and they stick around for a long time, right? So that's thinking through that. You can also test different levels of discounts on to see like if that can be more effective at winbacks. The nice thing about cancellation flows, as opposed to the A/B testing we mentioned, like the surprise and delight stuff we mentioned, is surprise and delight. I'm usually including the entire cohort of subscribers in that month. And so a discount or a gift that I'm giving to that entire cohort can be really expensive and somewhat risky. But on the cancellation flows, the nice thing is it's actually really easy to see, because the nice thing is, say I'm going to offer a free product to everybody that's leaving. I don't actually give free product to everybody. I only give free product to people that choose to stay. So I have a very clear ROI. Again, if I have 1,000 people walking out the door and I'm going to give $50 to everybody that stays and 100 people stay, I know I just spent $5,000. Are those 100 orders worth the $5,000 I just spent doing that? And it might not be quite that this month, but looking at that cohort month 2, month 3, month 4 after a cancellation save. So that's why I feel like you can be a little bit more aggressive on the discount side of things, on the cancellation part, spending more time understanding, getting more information around what's working or what's not, and start testing a few different user experiences based off of whether they really need a skip, whether they really need a gift or an extra discount. And again, different tools do this in different ways, but one of the things I really like seeing is that all of these subscription apps on Shopify, at least, are rolling out more and more reasons, more and more options, triggers, segmenting. Like, this is a piece that a lot of them are focusing on. So regardless of the app you're on, there's most likely they're doing some of this. If you'd like more information around what some of the other apps do, feel free to contact me. We could maybe just do an entire session on that someday. Okay, so thinking through of like how we're using cancellation flows as a means of like keeping people or preventing people from canceling, and we're talking about alignment. Again, so just kind of like as a wrap up, bringing this idea home, the idea is the using surprise and delight as a tool it's just that, it's a tool. We've talked about in the past about this difference between the art and science of subscriptions. And so surprise and delight is part of the science piece. It's something that I would say has a lot to do with trying to create just finding a few more wins in the margin, right? Like, can I do this? And does that boost this cohort at this month up 5% or 10%? right? It's a great method of testing that amount. But again, they can be fairly expensive. And sometimes you have kind of like a net effect, like a net zero effect on doing something like that. So I don't like starting there. I like starting with understanding who's coming into the subscription. What are they expecting? What are they experiencing? How are they adopting the product? So let's talk through some more ideas of how to do this, because there are a few things that I want to make sure that we are mentioning. Product inserts are a really big opportunity. A lot of subscriptions I see usually are talking about the company or about their story or about trying to get you to like join their social or their loyalty points or something like that. If your first experience for subscribers when they open this box isn't something to get them excited and using the product, you're missing out on your biggest retention opportunity, right? If you're selling protein powder and it's for endurance athletes, you should be opening that up and telling the story of an Olympic athlete that used your product to find a new PR, and the schedule on how to take the product and how long it takes to be effective. And you should be thinking it through like that. So a company that I've mentioned before is a really good example of this is Xendurance. And they tell people, before you take the product, go do one of your hard workouts, say like your Sunday or Saturday workout, and pay attention to your time. Make sure you're writing that down. And then the following day, start taking Xendurance. Take it for the 5-6 days before you do that workout again. Go do that same workout again and compare. Because Xendurance knows that their product is so good that you will see a difference within that 7-day period. And they're challenging you to do it. I did this as a subscriber. They told me that. I did a workout, started taking the product, did another workout, and I was like, wow. Night and day difference in how I felt. That's an immediate win. I am a lifetime fan of that product. I used it to train for a triathlon. I've got it sitting on my shelf, using it right now. That's how we need to be thinking about the subscription, this initial unboxing experience. What kind of excitement? What kind of training? What can we do to try to like make sure that somebody knows how to use the product, feels excited about the product, starts using the product? Now, as a great example, if I'm not training for something and I buy Xendurance's product because somebody said, hey, this will make you feel better, that's a horrible fit on a subscriber. So I'm going to churn, right? But that's okay in that instance. But again, if we can gather more information, we can understand maybe other use cases we can go after. So unboxing is a big one. You need to be doing post-purchase surveys. That is the drum that I beat over and over again, asking people related to the reasons why they subscribe. If you really want to get more on that, you can use pop-ups, asking people like just within the website, like what's brought you here today, or quizzes, other information before the purchase process to gather more information around your subscribers. Again, so you can create a more aligned experience. I do think you also have the option with direct mail, right? So if you're totally underutilized, because within a lot of subscription programs, they're using direct mail to like reactivate somebody. You can also use that as a means of like creating the right onboarding experience, like 2 weeks in, or maybe a week before their first renewal, sending that card, and it has like, say, again, that Olympic athlete story about our product, right? For an endurance product, right? Or if it's a beauty product, like a link to a special show you're putting on, or a famous person that's using your makeup, right? That kind of thing. Trying to find other ways to make sure you're getting the right alignment. Okay. So again, I want, as we're wrapping up with this, it's really about aligning customer expectations with what your product promises to do and actually does. And so building that as an experience is on the art side of the art and science of subscriptions. And a lot of this is using feedback, it's using information, but it's also getting outside of our own heads where we think we know what the product, how the product works and how people should be using it, and making sure we're actually understanding how people really think and feel about the product and how they're using it to create that correct alignment. That's going to cause fundamental shifts in your retention, right? That's going to take you from a 60% renewal rate to a 70 or 80% renewal rate without giving discounts. And that's why I harp on it so much. That's why I put it out there that this is what you should be, where you should be starting with your subscription. And then once you start getting this dialed and you starting to see effects, then you can go in with the surprise and delight approach to see how that's going to have an effect on if you can get it even further, right? Because then we're looking at we're doing a great job of aligning our use case with the customer's use case. And then for those that are maybe skeptical or on the fringe, maybe for whatever reason, they're like, I don't know if I really like this, if it's really working, then that surprise and delight helps for those people at the margin to get them to stick around a little bit longer, give your product another chance, which gives you more opportunities to win them from that alignment perspective. Okay, I want to give a big shout out to Salvit Advisors. I'm really excited to be working with their tool that's going to be coming out later this summer. If you'd like to be on that email list to get notified when that happens, you can email subdoc@salvit.com. Again, I'll have that in the show notes. It's going to be a really amazing tool to start giving you some feedback on where you should be looking and working on your program. Just being able to plug in and using that as a tool, it's going to be phenomenal and a game changer. Please like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, please, you can reach out to me. I always have my website in the show notes, thesubscriptiondoc.com. We've got some webinars going on right now. Make sure you're subscribed to the newsletter. Follow me on social. And again, if you have any questions or anything you'd like me to cover on this podcast, please reach out to me and let me know. Thanks, and I'll see you next week.
That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe so that you can get notified when new episodes come out each week on Tuesdays.